So hello guys, welcome to the next session of biology class, that is heredity and evolution. So in this topic we are going to learn about heredity and evolution. First we will study about accumulation of variation. So take the example of a bacteria. Okay, so how they reproduce? By asexual reproduction. Now this one bacteria divides into two, and these two bacteria divide into two. That is, this one has become 4, and they go on multiplying after each reproduction. Now suppose this bacteria, take this bacteria may not be completely identical to this bacteria, and here you can see some variations which may not be present here, and these variations may help this bacteria to survive in such critical conditions, some of the critical conditions in which this bacteria may not survive. Take the example of heat. Now if this bacteria has the DNA which is resistant to heat, it may survive in this type of conditions, but this may not. That is why reproduction is necessary to bring variations, and these variations are very minute in nature. That means they take in less quantity in case of asexual reproduction, but in case of sexual reproduction the variations are much more bigger, right? So we will see in further class. The next is heredity and inherited traits. Now heredity, these rules of heredity decides what should be the inherited traits. Okay, for example, all the human beings are similar in design, but their characteristics and there are a lot of differences in them. That means the child looks somewhat similar to their parents, but not completely similar. There are differences, okay, and in characteristics and also in the behavior. So these are the different rules of heredity. Now there are a lot of similarities and differences, right, in human beings. Or suppose the example of a child, take the example of any child. He may be somewhat similar to their parent, but not completely similar to the parent. So there are traits which decide the differences and variations that need to be brought in the child, so that they can evolve further and adapt in the situation in which the parent may not survive. And these variations may be good for the health or may be critical. So the heredity and inherited traits or the variations decide what should be there in a child for his better or the worse. Okay, now next is Mendel's experiment for inheritance. John Mendel. So what he took was he took two pea plants and he cross-pollinated and self-pollinated and brought some of the various results. He also took various types of seeds, very small, large, and different types of flowers like violet and white. So first of all, let's see in case of plants in terms of height. So he took one tall pea plant and he took one short pea plant. So tall pea plant was named TT and short pea plant was named TT. Okay, so after cross pollination he got the resultant was all tall plants, that is TT, TT, TT and TT. So basically this T is a dominant trait and this T is a recessive trait. Okay, so this was F1 generation, that means first experimental generation was all tall plants. Now he took two tall plants again, okay, and he cross pollinated them. Now the result was 3 tall plants and 1 short plant. Okay, so this was TT, TT, TT and TT. So what the results were inferred from this experiment was, to become a tall plant, one dominant trait is enough to get a tall plant, but to get a short plant, both the traits should be recessive or of that type, so that the resultant type should be shorter one. So the dominant trait decides what should be the child or the younger one look like, and the recessive ones should be in more quantity to show their characteristics. That means there are variations, most of the variations depending upon the dominant trait. Okay, that is, in case of this T is, or the tallness is the dominant trait and the recessiveness is shortness. Okay, so variations are brought in major quantity by the dominant trait, and the recessive ones should be in more quantity, or both should be recessive to get that trait. Okay, so these were the results from Mendel's experiment. So the Mendel performed another experiment. Okay, he took two seeds, one is round and yellow and one is round and yellow, that is wrinkled yellow. Okay, so wrinkled yellow and round yellow, when these were combined he got was round yellow, and when these two round and yellow were combined to get the result, the result was an astonishing result, and the result was there were total 315 seeds of round and yellow, 108 seeds of round and green, 101 seeds of wrinkled yellow and 32 seeds of wrinkled green. Okay, and the presence of everything was in the ratio of 9:3:3:1. Okay, so based on this experiment, these results were concluded that each gene set is present not as a single long thread of DNA but as a separate independent species called as chromosome, and when a cell divides it takes two copies of chromosomes, one each from male and one from female. Okay, and when germ cells combine they take one chromosome from each pair. Okay, and when two germ cells combine they reach to the total number of chromosomes to maintain the stability of DNA species. This was what inferred from Mendel's experiment. Okay, now the next is how sex is determined. Okay, suppose there is a male and a female. The male has XY chromosomes and female has XX chromosomes. So when the sperms or the gametes containing XY chromosomes meet with the zygote, that is X, if the zygote gets X gamete, then the future birth or the future child will be female, that is XX, and if the zygote combines or gets combined with XY, then what we get is a male. So in this way sex is determined. Okay, that means if the X gets combined with the zygote we get female, and if Y gets combined with the zygote we get male. Okay, now next we will see the concept of evolution. Okay, let us study this concept with the example of beetles which are red in color. Okay, now when these beetles live in bushes which are green in color. Okay, now take the first case. When the beetles are red, they can easily be seen by the birds. For example, suppose take the example of crow which eats these beetles. Now when the color is red, these red beetles can be easily seen in these bushes and can be eaten by crows. So slowly their population goes on decreasing. Slowly, because crows can easily see them and they eat. Okay, now the thing to survive further, there takes a small variation by which a green beetle is born. Okay, now this green and the color of bush which is also green will not make the crow easily see them, or the crow cannot see these beetles now. Now the thing is that the population of red goes on decreasing, but the green which are in less quantity, this goes on increasing because the crow cannot see them, and also they can survive in bushes by the process of adaptation or the variation, and this gives the stability to their population. Okay, now let's take the second case. Okay, now the thing is that as the red population goes on increasing of the beetles, due to small variation there exists a beetle which is blue in color. Okay, so slowly this blue starts increasing, but it has not achieved its dominance over red yet. So what happens is that one day an elephant comes and stamps all these bushes and all the red will die. So as a result what we get is, after time, there are more of blue beetles than the red ones. So in this way, nature plays an important role to bring out the evolution, and also the reproduction process has its major role in the process of variation also. Now in the third case, due to the scarcity of water or the leaves or the bush, the weight of beetles may be decreased or they are smaller in size. Okay. And in second case, when there is lot of water or mineral salts, or there are a lot of leaves on the bushes, the beetles may eat lot and they may grow in larger quantity and in larger weight. That means the beetles are bigger than this one. So in this way, evolution takes place after generations, and depending upon the needs of the environment and also the needs of their own self, they grow and they take variations and adapt according to the nature. Okay, and in this way, evolution takes place for the betterment of these beetles and also we human beings. Next is the concept of acquired and inherited trait. Suppose in the prior example we had taken the example of beetle, right? And if this beetle gives rise to a young one, or the small kiddo beetle, and this, due to the lack of present of leaves, it may starve and their weight might decrease and their size may also decrease due to starvation. So this is not an acquired trait, but it is inherited because of the starvation. Okay. And also another example, take the example of mice, mice. Suppose when you cut a tail of a mice, you cannot expect that the future generation will not have the tail itself, or the future generation will not be able to produce tail. You cannot say that, because the tail, the gene is acquired, or the trait is acquired in nature, and the future mice will have a tail because it has genes for the production of the tail. So there is the difference between an acquired trait, which cannot change generation after generations, but inherited trait can change depending upon the situation of the environment. Okay. Now the next thing is speciation or the speciation, whatever you call. Okay. Take the example of same beetles. I know you are bored, but let's take that example. Okay. And take this, an entire mountain full of bushes, and take this river, and here another mountain which is full of bushes. Okay, and there are beetles here everywhere, beetles. Now here there are beetles which are green in color, and here they are red in color. Okay, now various things happen here. Okay, when these green beetles are lot quantity in this, they meet with other beetles for the reproduction, and they evolve in large quantity, and they grow on. But at some point of time, that means after a long period of time, there may be a time where these bushes on which they feed, they may vanish. Okay, and this may trigger these beetles to travel far, crossing this river. Now some beetles may travel, some may remain here, some may die of starvation, and some may reproduce with them to give rise to a new generation with a new type of variations. Okay, now suppose, take another example, that there exists a crow here which can feed on these beetles. Now these beetles can also run out of population because crows are eating them. This also divides them based on the number of crows. Now suppose another example where an eagle comes and eats these crows, or makes these crows go away from here, but these eagles may not feed on these red beetles. So drastically, or as a result, the population of red slowly goes on increasing because of absence of crows. So these factors also affect the population and speciation. That means the groups are created based on the natural activity or their activity of reproduction in various ways. Now these green beetles can at a time also recombine with the red beetles and produce a new one of a blue species. But in some cases, or after few years, these green beetles may not be able to combine with the red, because they might be able to combine with another green due to some or the other reason, and these red beetles may not be able to combine with these green ones. So in this way, there are situations in which subgroups are created based on different results, and this affects the speciation or the groupism in all the species. Okay. Next is homologous and analogous organs. Take the example of forelimbs. Forelimbs in case of mammals, amphibians and reptilians, they have similar structure. Okay, remember this very importantly. Similar structure, but the function is different. So homologous organs are nothing but they have similar structure. That means the structure of their organs is similar, but the function performed is different. Next is analogous organs. They have different structure and same function. Consider the example of bat and a bird. So the structure of their wings is different, but the function is same, that is used for flight. Now the point is, or the question is, how do we study these organs? Okay, and these organs are studied with the help of fossils, which are found from long back. Consider the example of fossils of dinosaurs. With the help of fossils, we are able to study different organs and we can differentiate them depending upon whether it is homologous or analogous. Next is the concept of evolution. That means, or the stages of evolution. Now consider the same example of dinosaurs. Okay, so these dinosaurs back then had feathers which helped them to survive cold. So before, the feathers were used to survive cold conditions, but later with the evolution process, or the slowly evolution process, these feathers were used for flight, and that is why we can see birds flying around here and there, but dinosaurs could not fly. Okay, so this is how stages of evolution affects an organism for the good and for the bad. So the next concept is of whether progress term can be equated to evolution. Okay, so this cannot be related to evolution. Evolution is a long and slow process and depends on the criticalities or the situation based upon the nature. Okay, suppose human beings, and there is no proof of human beings and chimpanzees, or there is no proof that we have evolved from chimpanzees, but we do have a common ancestor and we have adapted our own way to live. Okay, and evolution does not mean that the old ones are not capable to survive these conditions. They are capable to survive any conditions, but their young ones or their successors are evolved for some good. Okay, but that does not mean that these old ones have vanished completely. There are certain bacteria from long time ago which are still present, and they can live in critical situations like hot water and in ice of Antarctica, but we human beings cannot, right? So evolution cannot mean that we are evolving for the good and the old ones are diminished or they are vanished. That does not mean that evolution is going for the betterment or the better. So human beings are evolving. That means the body designs are just getting complex and complex as we evolve further and further. But evolution, remember one thing, that evolution does not mean that the old party which is present, that is before, the ancestors or the ancestors of the being which are present now are not capable to live here. They are capable, but due to some of the other reasons they are low in quantity and are going extinct. Okay, there may be reasons that they are not able to survive those situations, but evolution also helps the organism to survive a little bit better than the prior one, but these variations can also lead that these are capable to live in some situations but these cannot. So evolution is just a complex process and it gives rise to complex body designs as we evolve. That's it. Now the last concept is of human evolution. So our ancestors or the footprints were found in Africa, that is the origin of Homo sapiens. Then they traveled from Africa to different parts of the world, that is East Asia, South Asia, then Philippines, Australia, etc., etc., etc. So the basic of human evolution is that we have evolved from the same origin, but there is difference in the characteristics or the appearance, but the origin is same. That means first the human beings were differentiated based on their color, that is races, but it is low in today environment, that is differentiation. This is how humans evolved, that is from Africa they traveled all over the world, and then due to the climatic conditions, all the nature, their skin color, appearances, then characteristics, the living habits all changed drastically, and eventually we all adapted to live some conditions and some suffer, but still we are evolving and we will be evolving in future. So this is about human evolution and heredity and evolution, and if you like the video, please do like, share and subscribe.